On my first day at the office, I managed to piss off my boss. She wasn't just any boss. She was Audrey Stone, the ice queen of Chicago's corporate world, a woman whose name alone made senior VPs tremble. She called me in her office, locked the door, and tossed a pile of delicate lace and silk at me. "Caleb Miller, you're going to hand wash these. If there's so much as a stray thread or a faded spot when you're done, you're fired." I looked at the mountain of high-end lingerie in my hands, and my fingers started shaking. These were the CEO's most personal garments. I had only wanted a simple 9-to-5 security gig. Why was I doing this? For the sake of my paycheck, I swallowed my pride. Then came the day she asked me to help her with a zipper in the dressing room. As she turned, I saw a familiar moon-shaped birthmark on her shoulder blade, and the silk cloth in my hand hit the floor. Wait a minute. Wasn't this Addie, the little crybaby I used to tease every single day when we were kids back in our small town? Back then, I was the brat who put grasshoppers down her collar. Now, she was making me wash her underwear. The universe really does have a twisted sense of humor. My name is Caleb Miller. I'm a country boy with zero ambition. My only dream was to find a low-stress, high-paid job and coast into early retirement. Armed with nothing but a high school diploma, I spent 3 days scouring the job boards until I found a security position. $80,000 a year, full benefits for 1K matching, and subsidized housing. In my hometown, that kind of money made you royalty. The HR girl had smiled sweetly as she took my resume and told me to report directly to the CEO's penthouse office the next morning. I knew something was fishy, since when does a security guard report to the CEO? But the salary blinded me. The next day, I put on my best t-shirt and showed up on time. The plaque on the door read, Audrey Stone, President and CEO. The name sounded like a sharp slap to the face. I knocked, and a cold, clear voice drifted from inside. "Come in." I pushed the door open. A woman in a sharp charcoal blazer and skirt stood with her back to me, staring out a floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the Willis Tower. Her silhouette was, well, breathtaking. "Good morning, Ms. Stone. I'm Caleb Miller, the new hire. MHM. She didn't turn around. Her voice was absolute zero. "Starting today, you're my personal assistant." I blinked. Wait, no. I applied for the security detail. The security department is at capacity. She turned around then, and a face of aggressive beauty crashed into my vision. Sharp eyes, a straight nose, thin lips pressed into a firm line. She radiated a "don't come near me" energy. Everyone in the building said Audrey Stone was a heartless work machine who had made enough assistants cry to fill a football stadium. My heart sank. This was going to be a nightmare. "I quit," I said, turning for the door. "The breach of contract penalty is $3 million. She slowly pulled a document from her desk, the very one I'd signed yesterday. I've been so busy looking at the salary, I hadn't read the fine print. My knees went weak. I almost knelt right there. "Ms. Stone, I was wrong. I'll do it. I'll do anything." The corner of Audrey's mouth seemed to twitch, but it was gone so fast, I thought I'd imagined it. Her first command was for me to go buy sriracha-glazed Limburger cheese from a specialty shop 3 neighborhoods away. I ran through the city and finally found that culinary abomination. When I brought the pungent mess back, she actually took an elegant bite right in front of me. "Try some," she said, holding the spoon out. I looked at the yellowish, oily glob and felt my stomach do a somersault. "I'm good, thanks." "Eat it, or I'm docking your pay." I closed my eyes and swallowed a spoonful like a man facing a firing squad. I nearly gagged. The next day, she made me put on the company's mascot costume, a giant, fuzzy hawk, and hand out flyers at the building entrance. It was 95 degrees out. Inside that heavy headpiece, I felt like I was in a mobile sauna. The second I tried to sneak into the shade for a break, my phone buzzed. It was her office line. "Caleb, I'm watching the security feed. Get back out there." I had to spend the rest of the day sweating like a pig in a bird suit. Before the shift ended, she called me in and tossed a basin at me. "Wash these." Inside were colorful, delicate garments. Lace, silk, and things made of so little fabric they barely qualified as clothing. As a guy in his 20s, my face turned the color of a ripe tomato. "Ms. Stone, this seems inappropriate." "How so?" she asked, arching an eyebrow. "My personal assistant does what I need him to do. I came here for a job, not to be a maid, especially for this." I was fuming. "You can choose not to wash them," she said, pointing to the door. "But then you can leave and write me a check for $3 million. I folded. I took the basin into the men's room and scrubbed while cursing under my breath. This woman is insane. She's just jealous of how good I look, so she's torturing me. Psycho. Which, I couldn't understand it. How did a simple guy from the sticks like me end up in the crosshairs of this corporate demon? Did I kick her dog in a past life? Life continued in this state of misery until one afternoon, the lobby erupted in chaos. A loud humming sound echoed from the roof. A bubblegum pink helicopter had just landed on the helipad. Moments later, a man in a white designer suit with hair so gelled it reflected the sun descended into the lobby, carrying a massive bouquet of 100 roses. It was Chad Harrington III, the douchey Playboy CEO from the tech firm across the street. Half the office gathered to watch the spectacle. Look, Chad's back for another proposal. How many times is this? I've lost count. Audrey never even looks at him. The guy has serious persistence. Chad ignored the crowd and marched straight toward Audrey as she stepped off the elevator. Audrey, my darling, marry me. He dropped to one knee, a perfect stage pose of devotion. Audrey didn't even glance at the roses. Her face was a mask of pure disgust. Her eyes scanned the room and landed on me in the corner, where I was pretending to be a mop. She strode over, grabbed my arm, and announced to the entire room, "This is my boyfriend." The piece of gum I was chewing fell right out of my mouth. The room went silent. Chad looked at me, then at the shiny mop in my hand, and looked like he was having an existential crisis. "You're into this?" Chad pointed at me, his voice trembling with heartbreak. "Audrey, if you wanted to reject me, you didn't have to insult yourself like this." Suddenly, I was dragged into a high society feud. Chad pulled me aside later and whipped out a checkbook, scribbling a string of zeros. 10 million. Leave her. I looked at the check, my hand itching to take it. But then I felt a cold gaze piercing through me from across the room. I shivered and pushed the check back. "We're in love," I said, feeling like I was going to vomit. To keep the act going, Audrey took me to a high-profile gala that evening. She tossed a tuxedo at me. It fit perfectly. Put on. When I came out, she looked me up and down. For a split second, I saw a flash of genuine surprise in her eyes. "Well, clothes really do make the man," she remarked, her tongue as sharp as ever. At the gala, surrounded by the elite, I played the role of the dutiful bodyguard boyfriend. Midway through, something went wrong with her gown. "You, come with me," she commanded, leading me to a private lounge. "The zipper is stuck. Fix it." She turned her back to me, revealing her smooth, bare skin. I swallowed hard, my palms sweating. I tried to gently work the zipper, but the cheap thing just got tighter. My fingers slipped, brushing against her skin. In that moment, I froze. On her right shoulder blade was that moon-shaped birthmark. Faint but unmistakable. My brain felt like it had been hit by a lightning bolt. A locked memory flooded back. Back in her hometown, there was a little girl named Addie who lived next door. She was pretty as a picture, but a total crybaby. I was a brat back then and loved making her tear up. Once I pushed her over, and she landed right on a sharp rock. She cried so hard the whole neighborhood heard it. Her parents took her to the doctor, and luckily it was just a surface wound, but it left a scar shaped like a crescent moon. Shortly after, her family moved away and never came back. I had remembered that moon-shaped scar for years. I looked at the woman in front of me, my hands trembling. I whispered tentatively, "Addie." Audrey's entire body went rigid. She slowly turned around, her face no longer cold, but filled with a complex, unreadable emotion. But a second later, she swung her hand and delivered a stinging slap across my face. "Smack! Pervert!" she hissed, her eyes rimming with red, her voice shaking. I held my burning cheek, completely stunned. Was it her? No way. Addie was a soft, sweet little kid. This woman was a man-eating tiger. But how else do you explain the mark? That slap woke me up. The more I thought about it, the more it didn't add up. The mark, the last name, the way she seemed to target me for no reason. I had to be sure. The next morning, I got to the office early. I'd gone to a toy store and bought a hyper-realistic rubber cockroach. I tucked it in my pocket and walked in her office, heart racing. She was reading files, not even looking up. I pretended to refill her water and stealthily dropped the roach onto her documents. Then I backed away, waiting for her to lose it. When we were kids, Addie was terrified of bugs. A single ant could make her cry for half an hour. I held my breath, waiting for the scream. Audrey simply looked up, saw the cockroach, and didn't even blink. She didn't scream. Instead, she took her 4-inch heel and brought it down. Crunch. The fake roach was flattened into a piece of plastic. She picked it up, tossed it in the trash, and looked at me. Childish. My heart sank. Had I really gotten it wrong? I wasn't ready to give up. I tried another tactic. As a kid, Addie hated cilantro. Even the smell made her gag. When I made her afternoon tea, I squeezed a few drops of cilantro extract into the cup. I handed it to her, watching her like a hawk. She took a long sip, her face a mask of indifference. She even smacked her lips. This tea is actually quite good today. Then she turned the tables on me. Since you seem to have so much free time, go run 6 miles around the block. Don't come back until you're done. I spent the afternoon running under the scorching sun like a dog, feeling utterly dejected. Maybe I was just overthinking it. Coincidences happen. I couldn't let a birthmark turn me into a conspiracy theorist. By evening, the sky turned a bruised purple. Dark clouds rolled in, and the wind began to howl. Suddenly, a flash of lightning tore through the sky, followed by a roar of thunder. I just finished my run and was dragging my exhausted body back into the building to grab my things. Passing the CEO's office, I noticed the lights were still on. Was the witch still working? For some reason, I pushed the door open. The main lights were off. Only a floor lamp cast a dim, amber glow. Audrey wasn't at her desk. I looked around and finally found her, tucked into a ball under her massive mahogany desk. She was hugging her knees, her body shaking uncontrollably, her face as white as a sheet. Another flash of lightning, another deafening crack of thunder. She flinched violently, a small, broken whimper escaping her lips. "Caleb, help me." That voice. It was soft, high-pitched, and trembling. The exact voice of the little crybaby from my childhood. My brain exploded. This was it. The absolute proof. Back then, every time it thundered, Addie would run to my house and cling to my leg. She used to say that as long as Caleb was there, she wasn't scared. I looked at this shivering woman and felt a wave of mixed emotions. She wasn't fearless. She was just incredibly good at pretending. I walked over slowly and knelt in front of her. Just like I did when we were kids, I reached out and gently ruffled her hair. "Don't be scared. I'm right here." She slowly looked up. Those beautiful eyes were swimming with tears, her expression vulnerable and lost. But the moment she realized it was me, the vulnerability vanished, replaced by her usual ferocity. "What are you looking at? Who told you to come in here?" She shoved me away, struggling to stand and smoothing her disheveled clothes. "I'm docking your pay for the month." I looked at her trying to regain her Ice Queen persona and couldn't help but laugh. Now that I knew it was her, the game had changed. If I could handle her when we were toddlers, I could handle her now. "Addie, it's been a long time. Are you ready for some of your old friend Caleb's special attention?" Knowing her secret changed my whole mindset. What used to be swallowing my pride became a game of cat and mouse. She thought I was still the lowly assistant she could push around, not realizing that the best hunters often play the role of the prey. The next day, she started her usual antics. "Caleb, go to that trendy bakery downtown and get me a limited edition strawberry tart. If they're sold out, don't bother coming back." I knew the place. They only made 20 a day, and people queued up for blocks. The old Caleb would have run there immediately. Instead, I went to the cafeteria, bought 2 plain breakfast muffins, and plopped them on her desk. "Here's your tart, Ms. Stone." Audrey stared at the plain, dry muffins. Her face turned green. "Caleb, do you think I'm blind?" "The bakery went bust, Ms. Stone." The owner ran off with the money. I lied through my teeth with a straight face. "Just eat these. They're better for your stomach anyway. You weren't this picky when you used to steal my snacks back in the day." I put a heavy emphasis on back in the day. Audrey froze. Her face turned a shade of red, usually reserved for emergency flares. She glared at me, speechless, before finally snatching a muffin and biting into it with a vengeance, as if she were biting me. Just then, Chad Harrington III showed up again. This time, he didn't have a helicopter, but he had a truckload of blue roses arranged in a giant heart in the parking lot. Trailing behind him was Brittany Vance, Chad's VP of Operations, and a world-class manipulator. Brittany had always been jealous of Audrey and looked for any chance to humiliate her. She strolled into the office holding 2 coffees, acting like a delicate flower. As she passed me, she tripped, sending a cup of scalding coffee directly onto my lap. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, Caleb. I didn't mean to." Her mouth said sorry, but her eyes were glued to Audrey, waiting for the fallout. I winced from the heat, but my mind was racing. I let out a dramatic ow and collapsed onto the floor, clutching my leg and howling. "My leg? I think it's broken. Ms. Stone, this is a workplace injury. I need a lawyer." I wailed, squeezing out a few fake tears. "I'm not getting up for less than $100,000 in damages." The whole office stared in shock. Brittany's face went pale. Audrey blinked, then realized what I was doing. She suppressed a smile and walked over. She looked down at Brittany with a cold, piercing gaze. "Ms. Vance, my employees are very expensive. Pay up." Brittany was forced to write a massive settlement check on the spot. She left fuming, her face contorted with rage. Chad was actually clapping from the doorway. "Incredible. That was some professional-grade insurance fraud. I love it. Once everyone cleared out, Audrey dragged me into a vacant conference room and slammed me against the wall. A full-on corporate wall slam. She stared into my eyes, her expression a mix of irritation and curiosity. When did you figure it out? I looked at her face, inches from mine, catching the scent of her expensive perfume. My heart hammered against my ribs. I leaned in close to her ear and whispered, right around the time you made me wash those little pink bear panties. Her face went nuclear. The red spread from her ears down to her neck. She shoved me away in a fit of embarrassment. Get out. I walked out of the conference room grinning. I knew that from this moment on, the power dynamic had shifted. This revenge game? It was only just beginning. Chad, meanwhile, decided I was a thorn in his side. He figured a country bumpkin like me must be using some kind of black magic to charm Audrey. To reclaim his goddess, he challenged me to a duel. The location, an elite country club on the outskirts of the city. When I arrived, he was decked out in $5,000 worth of golf gear, complete with a professional caddy. Me? I was still in my security uniform, carrying a push broom I'd borrowed from the janitor. A broom. Chad looked at my club with utter disdain. Are you here to play or sweep the parking lot? Same thing. It's all in a swing, I said, shrugging. He snorted and ignored me. He took a breath, twisted his hips, and swung. The motion was fluid and professional. Thwack! The white ball arched beautifully and landed right in a sand trap. The caddy let out a polite cough. Chad's face turned purple. It was my turn. I planted the broom, recalling the days of shoveling manure back on the farm. I mimicked his hip twist and shoveled the ball with everything I had. The ball took off, wobbling through the air in a jagged line, before dropping with a clink right into the hole. Hole in one. The silence was deafening. Chad's jaw dropped so low you could have parked a car in it. You played before. I leaned on my broom and gave him a humble smile. Never. But shoveling pig muck back home uses the exact same muscles. Muscle memory, I guess. Chad's face was now greener than the grass. Not to be outdone, he invited me to a high-end bar that night, claiming we would settle things with a drinking contest. At the bar, he ordered a row of neon-colored, obscenely expensive cocktails. My treat. Drink as much as you want. If you die, I'll pay for the funeral, he challenged. I reached into my beat-up canvas bag and pulled out a plastic water bottle filled with a clear liquid. You city folks like this colored sugar water? No keek. I unscrewed the cap, and the scent of pure, unadulterated alcohol filled the air. Try this. Homemade moonshine from the hills. 130 proof. It'll put hair on your chest. The result was predictable. 2 hours later, Chad was hugging a lamppost outside the bar, crying and calling for his mother. I hauled him up, checked his phone for an address, and dropped him off at Brittany's doorstep before disappearing into the night. Just as I reached the corner, a red Ferrari pulled up. The window rolled down to reveal Audrey. She looked at me with a mix of annoyance and something that looked a lot like concern. Why do you bother with that idiot? She asked. You smell like a distillery. It's disgusting. I grinned and, fueled by the moonshine, hopped right into the passenger seat. I leaned my head on her shoulder, feeling the world spin. Gotta do my part. Protect the boss from unwanted suitors. I mumbled. This deserves a raise. She stiffened for a moment, but she didn't push me away. The car's AC was humming, and she smelled like jasmine. I closed my eyes and felt like I was a kid again, the time I'd gotten into trouble and Addie had hidden me from the adults, sneaking me a piece of candy. That candy had been sweet. This moment felt even sweeter, though a lot more complicated. Brittany Vance hadn't gotten Chad Harrington 3 like she'd hoped. Instead, she'd been humiliated and was down a lot of money because of me. She hated my guts. To make matters worse, Chad used his family's connections to get her a job at our company as a VP. He called it keeping his friends close, but really, he wanted her to spy on Audrey and me. So, Brittany became my direct supervisor. On day one, she tried to pull rank. Caleb, photocopy these files, 100 copies each. Caleb, give me a coffee. Hand ground, exactly 185 degrees. 1 degree off, and you're doing again. Caleb, the men's room on the 4th floor is backed up. Go fix it. I took it. I knew she was planning something bigger. Sure enough, a few days later, she handed me a folder. This is a sensitive document, the core of our next merger. Deliver it to the satellite office personally. Don't lose it. She sounded incredibly serious. I took the folder and smirked. As I walked out of the building after my shift, 4 security guards blocked my path. Caleb Miller, you're suspected of leaking trade secrets. Come with us. They hauled me into the main boardroom. All the executives were there. Audrey sat at the head of the table, her face like stone. Brittany was standing to the side, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, looking like a victim. Ms. Stone, I never thought Caleb would do this. I trusted him with the most sensitive files, and he sold them to our competitors for cash. She was sobbing now, painting a vivid picture of my betrayal. Everyone in the room looked at me with pure disgust. Audrey looked at me, her voice unreadable. Caleb, do you have an explanation? I looked around at the judgmental faces and smiled. I slowly pulled my phone out of my pocket and hit play. A clear recording filled the room. It was Brittany's voice. Humph. That country bumpkin thinks he's something special. I'm going to run him out of Chicago. I'll give him this fake file, report him, and then let's see Audrey Stone try to save him. Chad promised me a designer bag if I got rid of him. He's so stupid, he'll walk right into the trap. It was a recording of Brittany talking to herself in her office. I'd seen her acting suspicious and had stuck a tiny voice-activated recorder under her desk. Years of avoiding my dad's belt back home had given me a very healthy sense of paranoia. The room went silent. Brittany's face turned the color of chalk. She pointed a shaking finger at me. You framed me. Chad Harrington popped his head into the room. God knows how long he'd been lurking. Wow, what a twist. I love the drama. Audrey stood up, not even glancing at Brittany. Security, escort her out. Inform legal we're filing for commercial defamation and breach of fiduciary duty. Also, she paused, her eyes landing on me. Given Mr. Miller's exceptional performance in protecting company interests, he is hereby promoted to senior executive assistant, with a 100% salary increase. Brittany was dragged out, screaming curses. He waved a hair. Safe travels, Brittany. Pro tip: too much bitterness is bad for your skin. The mood in the room shifted instantly. The executive's glares turned into looks of awe. I met Audrey's eyes. There was a light in them I hadn't seen before. It wasn't how a boss looks at an employee. It was how you look at someone who belongs to you. To celebrate my promotion and to reward the hardworking staff, Audrey decided on a company retreat. She let me pick the location. I grinned and gave her the coordinates. Clear Creek. Fresh air, mountain views, real salt-of-the-earth stuff. Great for the soul. Clear Creek was the name of the valley where my hometown sat. When the company bus pulled into the village, the city slicker staff looked horrified. Caleb, you called this fresh air? One coworker asked, staring at a pig rolling in a mud pit near the welcome sign. I hopped off the bus and was immediately swarmed by a pack of kids. Caleb's back. Did you bring candy, Caleb? I laughed and handed out handfuls of sweets I packed. The locals, Old Man Miller, Mrs. Gable, all cheered. Look at Caleb, all dressed up and riding in a fancy bus. I was the local hero. Just then, a girl in a sundress came running over with a bowl of steaming food. Caleb, you're home. Eat some biscuits and gravy. I just finished making them. It was Daisy, the mayor's daughter and my other childhood friend. She shoved the bowl into my hands and grabbed my arm, chatting away. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Audrey. Her face was as dark as a storm cloud. She was wearing expensive designer hiking gear and limited edition boots that looked ridiculous in the mud. She trailed behind me, her heels sinking into the dirt with every step. Chad had it even worse. He tried to pet a local goose, which promptly chased him across a field and bit a hole in his designer slacks. All afternoon, Daisy followed me like a puppy. Audrey's mood got worse by the minute. That evening, the town held a bonfire with music and dancing. Daisy tried to drag me into a line dance. I was about to say yes when a hand shot out and shoved Daisy aside. It was Audrey. She stared Daisy down, marking her territory. He has a bad back. He can't dance. I was confused. My back is fine. Audrey pinched my side so hard I gasped. She leaned into my ear and hissed. I said it's bad, so it's bad. Then, ignoring my protests, she dragged me back to the guest house the town council had set up for us. Once inside, she locked the door and shoved me onto the bed. She stood over me, her eyes flashing with fire. Tell me, what exactly is your relationship with that Daisy girl? The jealousy was so thick, you could have tracked it on radar. Looking at her pouting, I realized she was actually adorable. I decided to tease her. Oh, she's my future wife. Our parents practically set it up when we were kids. Audrey's eyes immediately welled up. She bit her lip, staring at me, without saying a word, tears trembling on her lashes. Seeing her look so crushed, my heart melted. This wasn't a cold CEO. This was just Addie. The day after we got back from the retreat, an uninvited guest showed up at Audrey's office. Her father, Arthur Stone, the chairman of the board. He walked in and slammed a merger agreement on her desk. Audrey, the company is facing a liquidity crisis. The only way out is a merger with the Harrington Group. I've already spoken to their chairman. You're getting engaged to Chad next week. Audrey went pale. Dad, I won't. I wouldn't marry Chad if you were the last man on earth. You don't have a choice. Arthur snapped. For the sake of the family legacy, you will marry him. The two of them screamed at each other for an hour. Standing outside the door, my heart sank. Chad might be an idiot, but his family had serious power. For the sake of business, he'd probably go through with it even if he didn't love her. That night, Audrey stayed in her office for a long time. I stayed right outside the door. Late that night, she called me in. She looked exhausted, her eyes red and swollen. She handed me a bank card. There's $5 million on here. The pin is your birthday. Her voice was a tired whisper. Leave Chicago. Go somewhere far away and don't come back. I looked at the card, a sharp pain stabbing my chest. Even now, her first instinct was to protect me. I didn't take the card. Instead, I grabbed it and snapped it in half right in front of her. Audrey Stone, who do you think you're talking to? I looked her in the eye. Your man isn't a coward. She froze, and the tears finally started falling. The engagement party was a massive affair. Every power player in Chicago was there. Chad was wearing a loud pink suit, grinning like a moron. He might have claimed to like Brittany, but faced with family pressure and a billion-dollar merger, he'd folded like a lawn chair. Audrey stood beside him in a white gown, looking like a hollow mannequin. Just as the officiant was about to announce the exchange of rings, I kicked the ballroom doors open. I was wearing an old, slightly faded suit from a thrift shop. The crowd erupted in whispers and sneers. Who is this guy? Where's security? Looks like he crawled out of a dumpster. Chad's father pointed at me. Security, throw this trash out. I ignored them and walked straight toward Audrey. Suddenly, the roar of engines echoed from outside. A fleet of a dozen black luxury SUVs pulled up to the hotel entrance. The doors opened, and a group of ordinary-looking but incredibly imposing older men stepped out. The guests were stunned. Is that billionaire Marcus Vance? And the man next to him, that's former Governor Sterling. Wait, is that the Grandmaster of the National Chess Federation? These were titans of industry and politics, men who could crush the Harringtons with a phone call. And they were all here. Marcus Vance walked straight up to me and slapped me on the shoulder. Grandson, who's giving you trouble? Tell your old grandpa. I pointed at the Harringtons. Marcus's eyes went cold. He looked at Chad's father, whose legs were visibly shaking. Mr. Harrington, you've got a lot of nerve. Trying to steal my grandson's woman. Chad's father dropped to his knees. Literally. I took Audrey's cold hand in mine. As she stared at me in shock, I smiled. Let's go home. I'll make you some real food. No one knew that our poor little valley of Clear Creek was actually a secret retirement haven for the world's elite. The old man Miller, who went fishing with me every day, was a retired tech mogul. The guy I played chess with was a former world leader. I was the boy they'd all watched grow up, the grandson of the entire valley. Who's the boss now? After the wedding crash, Audrey officially moved out of the Stone Mansion to avoid her father. She showed up at my 40-square-meter apartment with 2 massive suitcases. Caleb, take me in. And just like that, my bachelor life was over. The billionaire CEO was about to experience life as a commoner. On day 1, she tried to make oatmeal and used laundry detergent instead of sugar. If I hadn't smelled the fresh linen scent coming from the kitchen, we would have been in the ER. On day 2, she tried to do laundry and treated the washing machine like a blender, mixing my white t-shirts with her red designer silk dress. I looked at the basin of pink dye and wanted to cry. She ended up wearing one of my oversized shirts, now dyed pink, with her long, pale legs tucked under her on the sofa as she fought me for the remote. I want to watch Bloomberg. I'm watching the Discovery Channel. We were like 2 toddlers, arguing until our faces were red over a piece of plastic. Chad didn't give up. He actually rented the apartment across the hall and spent his days staring through a high-powered telescope to spy on us. I got fed up and called the cops. As they hauled him away for stalking, he screamed, "Caleb, I'll be back. This isn't over." Brittany, now totally unhinged, started posting anonymous rumors online about how Audrey had been bought by a country boy. She even posted photos of my apartment building. The story went viral. Audrey just laughed. She logged onto her official Twitter account and posted a photo of us back at the farm, covered in mud while feeding the pigs. Her caption, "Yeah, I'm being kept by the owner of this pigsty." The internet lost its mind. Oh my God, power couple goals. The CEO and her country wolf boy? I am obsessed. Wealthy lady, I'm hungry too, feed me. That night, the power went out in the building. The room was pitch black. I just lit a candle when I heard a muffled scream from the bedroom. I rushed in to find Audrey buried under the covers, shaking. I'd forgotten. She was terrified of the dark and thunder. I walked over and patted the blanket. "Hey, it's okay." No response. I sighed. pulled back the covers and hauled her out. She immediately dove into my arms, wrapping her hands around my waist and burying her face in my chest. In the silence, I could hear her racing heart. And mine. "Caleb, your heart is beating really fast," she whispered. "No kidding. You've got 130 pounds of dead weight hanging off me. Try it sometime." I acted annoyed, but I didn't let go. Her hair smelled like vanilla. In the dark, all my senses were heightened. The temperature in the room seemed to rise. Just a guy and a girl, alone in the dark. My brain started drifting toward some very PG-13 thoughts. "No, Caleb, stay professional. Don't be a creep." Brittany Vance had officially crossed over into the dark side. After being fired, she teamed up with one of Audrey's corporate rivals to plot a kidnapping. Her target was Audrey. One afternoon, Audrey went to a branch office and never came back. That evening, I got a call from a voice-distorted number. "Caleb Miller, we have your woman. 10 million in unmarked bills, or she's dead." My heart dropped, but I kept my voice steady. 10 million? That's all she's worth? That's insulting. Make it 100 million, or I'm not even interested. The line went silent. I knew it was Brittany. No one else was this theatrical. I didn't call the cops. I went straight to the local precinct to bail someone out. Chad had been in lockup for 3 days. He looked terrible when he walked out. "Brother, you came for me." I grabbed him. "Want to be a hero?" He blinked. "What?" "Audrey's been kidnapped by Brittany. I know where they are. You help me save her, and you get to be the knight in shining armor." The idea of looking cool in front of Audrey and saving his beloved Brittany from herself sent Chad into a frenzy. "Let's go. Into the Lamborghini." "Too much traffic," I said, pointing at the city's bike share rack. "Take these. We can weave through the gridlock." And so, in the middle of Chicago's rush hour, 2 men on blue rental bikes pedaled like their lives depended on it. It was the most ridiculous thing anyone had ever seen. We reached the abandoned warehouse by nightfall. Inside, Brittany was holding a knife to Audrey's neck, screaming about how Audrey had taken everything from her. A few hired thugs were standing around, laughing. Chad couldn't wait. He charged in, screaming, "Stop! Unhand that maiden!" He took 2 steps and tripped over a stray piece of rebar, face planting, and crept up behind the lead kidnapper. Clunk! One down. Brittany shrieked and tried to run, but Chad scrambled up and grabbed her by the ankles. "Brittany, stop this madness. It's not too late to turn back." She was so annoyed by his clinging that she eventually pulled out her own phone and called 911. "Help! Police! There's a creep touching my legs." When the police arrived, it was a mess. Once the dust settled, Audrey collapsed into my arms, sobbing. I held her close, patting her back. "It's okay. You're safe." When she finally stopped crying, I looked down. "Hey, watch the snot. This shirt cost me $20. She laughed through her tears and punched me in the chest. The nightmare was over. After the kidnapping, things moved fast. I decided it was time to propose. I checked my pockets. I had some loose change and a crumpled $5 bill. How does a guy like me propose? I can't just give her a soda can tab, can I? I spent nights searching the internet for how to propose with $10. The next day at work, I realized someone had been through my browser history. Audrey was sitting at her desk, pointedly rubbing her ring finger. "Gosh, my hand feels so empty lately. It's really bothering me. I wonder if a ring would help." My heart skipped a beat. She knew. My face turned red, but I stuck to the plan. I spent the afternoon taking a soda can tab and polishing it until it shone like silver. That night, I took her to the rooftop of the office building. I'd set up candles and flowers, stolen from the building's lobby planners. I took a deep breath, dropped to one knee, and pulled out the tab. "Addie, I know this is pathetic, but..." A sudden gust of wind caught the tab and sent it flying. It arched over the edge of the skyscraper and vanished into the Chicago skyline. I stood there, frozen. Seriously, universe? I was about to climb over the railing to find it when Audrey grabbed me. "Caleb, you idiot. Are you trying to kill yourself?" Suddenly, the giant LED screen on the skyscraper across the street flickered to life. Pictures started scrolling. The first was 2 toddlers, half naked, laughing in a creek. It was us. The second was me putting a bug down her shirt while she cried. The third was us huddled under a blanket during a storm. A lifetime of memories playing for the whole city to see. I was speechless. Audrey let go of me and took a step back. Then, as I watched in disbelief, she slowly dropped to one knee. She pulled out a velvet box. Inside was a diamond the size of a postage stamp. "Caleb Miller," she said, her voice steady despite her teary eyes. "I don't want to be your boss anymore. I want to be your wife. Will you marry into the Stone family?" The city lights seemed to focus entirely on her. Before I could process it, the roof door burst open and Chad Harrington ran in with a bushel of roses, throwing petals everywhere. Say yes. Say yes. If you don't, I'm going to start dating you. I don't mind being a stepdad. I looked at Audrey, the light in her eyes, and that massive rock. I started crying. A grown man, sobbing like a baby. I nodded vigorously. Wealthy lady, I'm hungry. Feed me. She laughed, her own tears falling. She slid the ring on my finger, and I pulled her into a hug. Thank you, Addie. Thank you for not giving up on me. Our wedding wasn't at a 5-star hotel. We went back to Clear Creek and had a 3-day festival. The whole valley showed up. Billionaires and governors stood side by side with goat farmers. Chad Harrington, having lost a bet, was forced to wear a pink bridesmaid dress, becoming the most stunning part of the ceremony. On the wedding night, I was so nervous I didn't know what to do with my hands. Audrey came out of the bathroom in a red silk robe, holding a document. She slapped it onto the bed. Sign it. I looked at it. It was a post-nuptial agreement. Rule 1, the husband is always right. Rule 2, if the husband is wrong, see Rule 1. I felt a surge of emotion. Audrey, you're the best. I grabbed a pen to sign. Wait, she said, pointing to the fine print at the bottom. I squinted. Note, final power of interpretation belongs to the wife. Typical. I laughed and signed anyway. A few years later, at the Stone Group's annual shareholder meeting, I was sitting in the back of the auditorium with our 2-year-old son on my lap, bottle feeding him. As the husband of the CEO, I'd embraced the stay-at-home dad life. I was nodding off when the little guy decided to let loose. A precise, powerful stream of toddler pee went flying, soaking his mother's designer blazer. Audrey was on stage at the time, giving a high-stakes presentation on global strategy to hundreds of executives. The room went dead silent. Everyone stared at the massive wet patch on her $10,000 suit. I felt my soul leaving my body. Audrey didn't skip a beat. She took off the blazer, tossed it toward me, and looked at me coldly in front of the entire company. Caleb Miller, I'm docking your allowance this month. I held the baby and started scrubbing her jacket. Yes, dear. Whatever you say, dear. The executives in the front row were turning purple, trying not to laugh. This is my childhood friend, my boss, and my wife. My status at home has plummeted, and she bullies me every day, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. Life is good. Story complete.